Hello, I'm Cheryl McCarthy. Welcome to One to One. Due to ongoing reform efforts, the overall prison population in the United States, while still the highest in the world, has been declining. But the population of incarcerated women has been growing. What's the cost to society and to the women themselves of keeping so many of them locked up? Esther Cohen is a writer, teacher, and social activist who teaches a weekly writing class for currently and formerly incarcerated women. Rosalind Smith, who until her release in 2018 was the longest serving female inmate in New York State, is a member of that class. What stories do these women have to tell? And what can we learn from them about how the criminal justice system needs to change? Welcome.
Thank you.
Esther, over the years, you've conducted classes for people on the lower rungs of society: food workers, taxi drivers, homeless people, low-income residents, victims of Hurricane Sandy. Sometimes it was a photography class, sometimes a writing class. Why a writing class for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated women?
It's enormously important for all of us to hear the stories of formerly incarcerated women if we want to participate in changing the circumstances of their lives. To hear from them what it's like there and to understand why it shouldn't be the way it is.
Roz, you spent 39 years in prison for a robbery and double murder that you took part in when you were 17 years old. You were actually sentenced to, was it 50 years or 50 to life?
It was 50 years. It was two sentences. It was 25 to life for one victim and 25 to life for the other victim, running concurrently.
Okay. But your sentence was commuted and you got out in 2018. What was the circumstances of your commutation?
So what had happened is there was a lot of buzz about youthful offenders and their culpability, and there were studies done with psychologists about the brain, how the brain processes, how a young adult's brain processes their life. And what happened is that there were several cases that went to the Supreme Court. One of the cases was Roper v. Simmons, and another one was Washington. I'm not sure about the other one, but Washington something. And the district attorney, Eric Gonzalez in Brooklyn, did a review of youthful offenders, and my case came up. And he reviewed the case, and he came to see me. We had a 2-hour visit, and in that visit, I just went over my whole life with him, from my childhood up into the crime, and then my what I did while I was in prison.
Did he have to get the governor's approval to commute your sentence?
No, he didn't. He didn't have to get to go because I went back into the court system.
Okay.
I went back into the Supreme Court, and the judge reduced my sentence from 50 years to 25 to life.
Okay.
So after doing 39 years, I had immediate release, and I went to the parole board.
Okay.
And was released from the parole board.
Now, I gather you and Esther met at a conference on in the empowerment of women that's held upstate. What was your interest in? Did you two collaborate on creating this class, and what was your interest in being a writing class?
When I was in Bedford Hills Correctional Facility, Eve Ensler came into the facility, and we did a documentary called What I Want My Words to Do to You. And in that documentary, it was, I think, 12 to 15 women. We found a space to deal with our trauma, to show remorse for our crimes, to understand the harm that we have caused to society and to our victims. And it just gave me a feeling of freedom to be in a safe space like that, to talk about things that I had inside, to understand, because I didn't even understand that I had trauma. You know, growing up, I was poor. My mother was a heroin addict, and I thought my life was just normal. And then when I came to prison, after the crime was committed and I came to prison, I was lost. And the writing group gave me the freedom to just release my story in my words and to understand the trauma that I went to and the hurt that I've caused to others.
So you sort of wanted to recreate that group outside with Esther?
Yes, because the trauma doesn't stop. Like, it's a constant healing process. And I will be healing for the rest of my life. And I wanted to have this space for other women who were formerly incarcerated and incarcerated to be able to heal. Because a lot of times we don't think about, healing. We don't think about, we go to prison, they send us to prison, you do your time, you come home, and they think everything's all right. And it's not.
So Esther, how many people are in the class? Who are they? Where are they? How does it work?
I could tell you that answer for the next few hours, but I'm going to be brief-ish and say that Roz initially created the class with women that she knew from Bedford, and the class is part of an institute at Columbia University called Beyond the Bars, and also V-Day. And Beyond the Bars was started by two women in Bedford, Kathy Boudin and Cheryl Wilkins, who became the first two people in the class. And then Roz recruited a group of other people, including a woman from the Akwesasne Nation who lives on the border of Canada and New York, and a woman who became a religious Muslim in prison who told me the first day that she hates poets and poetry, and a woman who is just became ordained as a minister. She recruited a very strong group of a dozen women who showed up every week to create a community and write their stories. And in the course of our working together, she said that she and Cheryl and some other people said that they hoped this could be a pilot for a national program. And we got permission last year from the state of Maine to include women in a prison in the south of Maine, which is some people call it a feminist prison. What they mean is it's better than the prisons anywhere else.
Okay.
Because there's some women in charge.
So you have some women who are there in person and others on Zoom?
They're all on Zoom now. Since
Okay.
the pandemic.
Right.
But the women in prison come to class from prison with their laptops. And last week, a large group of them, 10 of them, showed up to class and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote.
So what's the format of the class? What do you do? About 2 hours. What do you do?
We start out with me. I like to choose a song, which I would say 50% of the time people dislike the song. And then they replace my song with another song. And then Roz asks everybody how their week was. And we spend a certain amount of time checking in. And people's weeks are always complicated. And then I give them a poem by somebody I hope they'll like Lucille Clifton or Mary Oliver. I read a poem, and then we take a prompt. Sometimes the women themselves come up with a prompt, and sometimes I come up with a prompt. And often the prompt is something like coming home, what it's like to come home, what is home. And that prompt is so powerful that they use it the next week too. They keep writing, they read out loud to one another, and then they want to write it again. So we've written Coming Home a bunch of times.
Okay. So so they write for about, 15 minutes during the class? What kinds of things do they write about?
They write about their feelings. They write about what's happening in their lives. They write about things that happened to them in prison, memories, family, love, sex. We write about everything.
So, and I ask each of you to read something from that women have written. So, Roz, would you read something that you wrote?
All
And
right,
Esther, you're going to read something that another woman in
I
your
put my
class.
glasses on real quick. So this is a piece of a poem that I wrote in our last class, and it's about the women in the group. The story of us. We are the women whose blood runs through the veins of the misunderstood, misdiagnosed, and all those misaligned by this injustice system. Those of us who have figured out that we have in some form or fashion or reason being missed the boat somehow and in some way, or missed out on the best of our lives, or something in our lives, only to have found a pathway to healing and redemption with our sisters in a desolate, dark, and barren place, devoid of compassion, that we have transformed.
Esther, you're reading something from, is it Cheryl Wilkins?
I am. I'm
Okay.
reading Cheryl Wilkins. I do want to say the women are terrific writers. Not only Cheryl Wilkins and Roz, but every single woman is a very powerful writer. I write to use my platform that sheds a light on the experiences of all my sisters who are currently incarcerated, to take you into a place where there are no cameras, where darkness and sadness live, where a community of women are underrepresented and forgotten. I write to be a champion for their causes, and I carry that shield. I write to say no more, to say we will organize around kitchen tables, mobilize communities that are not being invested in, lift up the voices that are muted, and use our voting power to elect people into office who will fight for the rights of all, or get them out if they don't fulfill their promises. I write to seal the deal.
Esther, you have said that you've learned more, you've taught a lot of classes. You say that you have learned more from this one than from any other classes you've taught. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think that the women in prison form a real community of sisterhood. That's absolute. There's no sense that you can do anything that that community will leave you for. And I've never in my entire life experienced that. You know, I come from a tradition of petty grudges, from people who are angry for a lifetime because they were seated next to the wrong person at a wedding, for example. And these women have lived much more serious lives than that and done all sorts of things in society, and yet they remain absolutely loyal and steadfast to each other. They remain true sisters. And I feel privileged to have become welcomed into that world and to become a sister.
So Roz, does the class function as a sort of support group? You know, do women bring their problems, their issues, whatever, and other women help them out with them?
Yes, that is the space that we wanted to create. That's the space that I felt was needed. And sometimes we have class, and sometimes an issue comes up and we don't even write. We help each other and we work through it and we support one another. Everyone has each other's emails and phone numbers, and we always check in because it's important. We learn about self-healing and taking care of ourselves and always having somebody that's there, because that's what we had to do in prison.
So you obviously hear, the women in the class hear the other women's stories. You share your stories. Does anybody outside of the class get to hear these stories?
Yes, absolutely. And we work really hard for that to happen. We had a reading last year on Zoom, unfortunately, or fortunately, where over 1,000 people came. And they could hear the women in my class and the women in Bedford. Each person in my class read from one of the women who were writing in Bedford too. So women inside, women outside, all read for over 1,000 people.
And so could I just say something? We also are working with StoryCorps. They gave us a grant, and we will be working with them to do our stories. And once that is done, we will have that to put on social media as well. And there's another organization that works with prisoners, Rehabilitation Through the Arts. We are working on an animation with them to tell the stories of us.
So Roz, in addition to during this class, what are you doing now? You've been out, 3 years now?
3 years. I'm finally off parole. And that's a big thing for me because on parole, you have to report once a month to the parole officer. If you go out of state, you have to get a pass to do that. So I'm free from all of that. But what I do is I work for an organization that's called V-Day. And V-Day is a global organization that vows to end violence against women and girls. And my title is Beyond Incarceration Program Manager. And what I do is I involve myself in different campaigns. And one of the campaigns that I'm involved in is with the RAP organization, Release Aging People in Prison. And we're trying to get elder parole and fair and timely parole bills passed.
So tell me about those. These are before the New York State Legislature?
We go to legislate, and it's on Zoom. We go there, we tell our stories, we speak to different assembly people, we speak to different senators, and we try to get it passed. And I tell my story. My co-defendant died in prison. She was misdiagnosed with cancer. They told her it was acid reflux. She was getting ready to be released, and the day that they were going to go in there to sign her papers, she passed away. And it didn't have to be like that. She did 41 years in prison, and she was rehabilitated. She had programs that she initiated. She got her bachelor's degree. And nobody should have to wait that long to be released from prison.
Ross, you have said, we talked about the writing group functioning as a support group, and I think you have said that you really don't feel totally at ease with anyone other than women who have been in prison.
It's true. It's when I came home, I thought that I was going to be quote unquote free from everything. I could do this, I could interact with people, but I realized that after doing 39 years, it takes a while to be acclimated back into society. Like sometimes I go into stores and I feel overwhelmed because while I was in prison, I went to commissary and we had 10 choices of things to buy. I go into Walmart and I'm overwhelmed, and people can't relate to that. Sometimes I'm in a room with people and I don't feel comfortable. I feel like people are always looking at me like I'm a prisoner.
According to the Vera Institute of Justice, in 2018, more than 231,000 women and girls were in prison or jail in the United States, and the number has been going up. Do we have any idea why the number of women is going up while the number of men is going down?
I think what happens, being in prison, and I taught parenting classes while I was in prison as well. A woman that I worked with, we created a parenting from a distance program. So what happens is that a lot of women do stuff for the men in their lives and they get arrested for it. Crack had come into play. Opiates have come into play. The pandemic has come into play. Since the pandemic happened, a lot of women are being arrested, more than men also. All of these factors that happen out in our society, with people who are marginalized, that live in marginalized communities, all of these things come into play, and women just happen to be the ones that get caught.
Right. Both of you have suggested that hearing the stories of incarcerated or formerly incarcerated women can serve to make the public more aware of the kinds of changes that need to be made in the criminal justice system. What other changes do you feel cry out to be made?
So what happens in the criminal justice system is that you always hear about the men. The men this, the men that, the men have programs, the men have, when men come home, it's easier for them to get work because they use their physical strength in construction, they get good jobs. Women care about their children. When women come home, they want to be with their children. And people don't think about that. People don't think about the issues that women go through when they come home. And most of it is about connecting with your child.
Are there currently barriers to that, though? I mean, what kinds of reforms would make that easier for them?
So what happens, a lot of them, when they come to prison, they lose parental rights. When they come home, they have to jump through hoops with the system to prove that they have a place for this child to live, that they are working, and that they can take care of the child. So oftentimes, the woman will go into a shelter so she can get a voucher for an apartment so she could live with her kids. And then when that happens, the cycle just repeats itself. She might end up on welfare. She can't find child care, so she ends up getting into a place where she's not able to take care of herself or her children, and she recidivates.
What should happen instead?
There should be more programs for women. There should be more. It's one program that allows formerly incarcerated women to come home and live with their children, and that's Our Children. That's the only one in New York. There's no other program like that. And it's a small program.
Yeah.
You have people coming home every single day. And there needs to be more transitional housing for women and children when they come home. So the woman has the opportunity to be successful in her reentry, where she has child care, where she could get a job, where she could go to school, and she doesn't have to worry about all of that.
One thing you had also mentioned is, it was interesting to me, and I hadn't heard before, that if you would like to see more formerly incarcerated people on the parole board.
Yes, because they know the experiences that we go through. There are some, since I came home, I never thought about it, and I realized there's so many formerly incarcerated men and women that have created restorative justice programs, healing circles, businesses that support the communities that they come from and enhance the youth and try to teach them that I made a mistake. This is how I made a mistake, and I'm going to be here to support you so you can't make a mistake.
Mm-hmm. Esther, are there things that you have learned working with this group that surprised you?
Absolutely, yes. I learned, first of all, I learned much more how to listen, because I see how they listen to each other. And when you teach a class, you tend to dominate the class by feeling that every single person here has to love Lucille Clifton because I do. And I learned from these women that a lot of them don't like Lucille Clifton, and I should listen to the reasons why and not come to some snap judgment that they don't love her because they don't understand. I really learned how to listen carefully and to listen to what it is they need rather than feeling that I know what they should need. Mm-hmm. And that's a big difference.
I'm a big fan of Lucille Clifton, too.
I'm glad to hear that.
You talked about the need for more programs for women once they're out. Should there be more programs in prison?
Absolutely.
Because I know...
Absolutely. It's very interesting for us to be able to work with these women in the south of Maine, because that program is a model that would be fantastic to be replicated in other places. Why can't women have laptops and iPads, and why can't women take classes the way these women from Maine show up? They're happy to be there. They learn a lot. They learn from each other, and they get to tell their stories. I think doing that in a national way is absolutely life-changing.
We only have about a minute and a half left, but I'd like to hear from each of you what you'd like our viewers to take away from this program.
Well, I would like them to take away that, formerly incarcerated women and men are not monsters. We have these narratives that, they're going to come out and they're going to commit more crimes. Most of the people that have spent 10, 15, 20 years, 30 years in prison have been rehabilitated. And prison doesn't rehabilitate you. It's an individual opportunity that a person takes, because everybody doesn't do it. And that when they come home, they create wonderful programs to heal the communities that they come from. And that we need to empower more women.
I want us all to give people the opportunity to tell their stories, the prison stories, women in particular, because we know the stories of men. Women have different stories, and I think we can all be changed by them. And we'll join the group, we'll join the sisterhood and make life better for them by hearing those stories.
And I do think it's true that women, more than men, sort of get lost in prison.
We get lost in society.
Right.
Yeah, could I just say one other thing? Also, if anybody's listening, women need to learn how to code. Like, that's the future. Women need to learn how to code, and they need to start it in prison. You know, they have all these other programs for men, but we need to get women on board.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but I'd like to thank Esther Cohen and Rosalind Smith for joining me today. To learn about our upcoming shows, you can follow us on Twitter at 1-to-1 CUNY TV. For the City University of New York and 1-to-1, I'm Cheryl McCarthy.